There is one aspect that I have continually emphasized with regard to XRP, and this is the fact that the decentralized finance, DeFi aspect of the XRP ledger is severely inadequate. I would like to emphasize that I am not biased when it comes to XRP. There is only approximately $8 million worth of XRP on the ledger that is associated with DeFi. And if we are considering, as you are aware, an ancient coin that has a market capitalization of more than $100 billion associated with it, it would be reasonable to expect that the underlying network would have a far higher value in terms of TVL connected to it. But we don't, no. What's really crazier is that we have more than $300 million worth of stable coins, but the TVL in DeFi is only 77.6 million. We have been observing the deployment of an increasing number of protocols on the XRP ledger. Because the most of them are RWAs, I don't really pay attention to this. Again, these are RWAs. For instance, Open Eden has 172 million, which isn't really, I actually don't track this all that much. When considered in terms of true DeFi, the TVL is tied back to the actual DeFi protocols. This is similar to the situation with Doppler Finance, which has over $89 million. Nevertheless, if you are examining this, they are not included in the calculation of the chain TVL because this is CDeFi. However, despite the fact that we are tracking all of this, we still have a TVL that is less than $1 billion, just as we ought to have significantly greater worth that is connected to the decentralized finance and DeFi market. Is there any reason to believe that this will get better now? I have a strong conviction that it will. However, it should be noted that the XRP ledger, which was created in 2012 and was a built-in DEX from the very beginning, was the very first DEX to be built in. It is as astounding that even after the passage of 13 years, the blockchain still does not have an index that is natively constructed, and the total value locked is not even in the billions of dollars. Completely and utterly astounding. However, one of the most significant areas that we are aiming to target in the decentralized finance sector is institutional DeFi. Credit compliance and confidentiality are the next steps in the development of decentralized finance, DeFi, on the XRP ledger. This situation can be traced back to the month of September of this year, when Ripple provided a complete breakdown of the situation. We have already gone over the important points, which are as follows. Now we are at that point. Here are some of the most important points that need to be noted. The native lending protocol is the primary focus of our attention at this point in time, and it is also the primary focus of our attention when it comes to the new product that we plan to introduce on the XRP ledger. I believe that this will be extremely successful, and I believe that it will bring in an enormous amount of TVL. However, in addition to that, we are observing the launch of a small number of items on the XRP ledger, which is centered on the DeFi market. Yes, zero-knowledge proofs and other things like that. It is wonderful. However, I am truly interested in investigating things that will provide retail access in addition to institutional DeFi. For instance, the lending protocol is one of the most significant things that I have always concentrated on. The reason for this is that it will be a major issue for retail to be able to tap into, and we are already aware of the success of the AMM, and continues to be extremely successful to this day. And I believe that we are going to witness the exact same thing even when it comes to the loan protocol. In addition to that, MPTs and similar things are already providing support for and reinforcing what is now in place around the XRP ledger, which already has a tremendous amount of value connected back to it through TokenEye. In addition, MPTs also provide support for RWAs, therefore this is unquestionably a significant matter. After that, we also examine the authorization DEX. Let us now proceed to the DEX with authorization. This is in support of the foreign exchange market, also known as the FX market, which is a large-scale institutional undertaking, and that is the primary reason that I am concentrating my attention on the authorization DEX. This is the point at which we begin to notice some of the largest marketplaces that may be traded on the chain being exploited. I am therefore eagerly awaiting to see what occurs in the future. As we move forward, the most important aspect we will be taking into consideration for the XRP ledger for DeFi is the participation of significant players who will be tapping into and making use of the XRP ledger for decentralized finance. This is due to the fact that, once again, this is one of the very first blockchains to have DEX built in. It is one of the very first blockchains to provide support for tokenization and payments on a large scale. What would be preventing us from observing the network being struck by both the extensive quantities of value and the large-scale use cases? We ought to be. In the announcement that was released by Ripple on November 5th, we also discussed this topic. This is the strategic investment that is $500 million in size. The last element of this statement, which is the part that is focused on Ripple Prime, is one of the aspects of the news that many people overlooked. Ripple Prime is currently increasing its collateralized lending services for XRP and is backing a fast expanding number of institutions that are trading XRP-based products, as we can see at the bottom of this page. I am of the opinion that the lending protocol is going to be an enormous one in terms of supporting this, since once more we are beginning to observe Ripple Prime's expansion into the realm of collateralized lending for XRP. This is providing assistance to those large institutional players who are trading goods based on XRP. Ripple Prime, which was recently involved in a traffic accident, has a total of 300 high-caliber institutional players associated with it. We are therefore giving this our complete and undivided attention. In addition, I believe that this is going to be a really significant development for XRP as well as for the XRP ledger. At this point, we should discuss a few of the events that are taking place in the decentralized finance sector to provide assistance to the upcoming tsunami of capital that will arrive on the XRP ledger. Midas, of course, is the name of that wave. As a result, they have just enlarged the yield-bearing XRP product. Through the integration of Lista DAO, the MXRP to BNB chain is being implemented, which will provide over 480,000 XRP holders on the BNB chain with access to a wider range of DeFi earning options, a matter of great importance. In addition, Axler is the primary source of support for MXRP, so we have their announcement. Thus, what we possess is a fresh approach to generating MXRP yield has been made available to XRP holders on the BNB chain. It is now possible to stake liquid XRP on Lista DAO. It is the first of its kind for XRP. With the help of Midas and Axler, you may earn up to 10% APY through transparent yield techniques. I feel a great deal of enthusiasm for this. I feel that this is excellent, and, as you are aware, once more, this has already shown to be extremely successful. The numerical values have also been a topic of our discussion. Once again, this is simply additional support for the XRP DeFi sector of the market, with more expansions taking place for the purpose of interoperability across decentralized finance, DeFi, and for the purpose of earning yield through DeFi projects. I am absolutely ecstatic about this. And then, of course, there is Evernorth. We would be able to see Evernorth here on how all of this works by taking a look at this image that Anderson provided over on X. Therefore, we anticipate that the launch will take place in the first quarter of the year 2026. The listing can be found by us. In addition to that, we also have the leadership and governance breakdown, which includes a number of prominent figures from Ripple, as well as several other names. The strategy may be found in the bottom left corner of the page. Therefore, stockpile XRP as a reserve asset, institutional lending, liquidity provisioning, DeFi income prospects, and a long-term stimulus for the adoption and institutionalization of the XRP ledger. In that case, we also have investors, a large number of outstanding investors. We have previously discussed those topics. State Bank of India, SBI Ripple, and Chris Larsson are all examples of SBIs. However, the XRP ecosystem is continuously making progress on the other side. Therefore, we are currently running XRP validators, and we are also integrating decentralized finance with XRP as collateral and ROUSD. In addition, we will provide liquidity, participate in XRP products with payments, capital markets, and tokenized assets, and work to build the market. This is what the overall situation looks like in relation to some of these expansions. They are all supporting institutional grade DeFi, but they are also supporting DeFi itself. Some of these things are going to launch, and I am really looking forward to it. Without a doubt, Evernorth is a significant one. However, what about Flare in addition to everything else? All right, for the simple fact that Flare is also growing. On this side, we have this item, which is from Alton Tartar. The XRP Flare account was the very first on-chain vault to be constructed for XRP on the platform called Flare. The demand for XRP DeFi is GE, newing, and it is only going to increase from this point forward. As I stated earlier, I really believe that these players are all, I'm going to be very honest with you guys. At this point, I don't possess any Flare apart from the airdrop that I obtained. However, it is likely that it is not worth much since at the time that I received it, it was valued around 60 cents or something like. However, here among us is Hugo, who is one of the founders of Flare. He presents an analysis of their plan of action